you doing? Again, I can't get my remote hot on with. Oh, have I said that my internet service provider is T-Mobile? Home of unlimited. What do you call that? Unlimited internet with a 50 gigabytes cap. It used to be that if you had a drop call with a phone company, there was a guarantee that they would refund your minutes. However, the trick to that was every time you had a drop call, you had to immediately, I think, call the company and tell them, hey, I had a drop call, and, be put on hold and go through their whole rigmarole and talk to the robo voices, and then you get a human being and go through the process. And, you'll spend 15 minutes to try and make up 1 minute of drop service. And so it was a come on. It wasn't for real. I think I did it once, and when I first got my phone back in 2001, and I've had the same number and the same service, essentially with the same company, U.S. Sprint, since March. So yeah, it's my 20th anniversary, but I've never really felt in that whole time like they ever acknowledged a good loyal customer. And now that company has sort of been merged into T-Mobile, so it's like starting over again. 19 years short of my sort of like my last job, 19 years short of my 20th anniversary that I get forced out. I put my front deflectors on. Apparently I'm fogging up. I don't need the fan up that high though. Okay, turn it down a little. Turn down the noise. I just need a little. There's a wall fart up here too. There used to be a Sears right here. I'm driving right past it now. Sears has pretty much gone down the tubes, and I think they shut down this location too. I know they did. I don't know of any Sears in the Kansas City anymore. It's a shame. It used to be a staple, but I don't know, since the 80s and 90s, Sears just kind of became more and more old-fashioned, and by that I mean, like, I went into, I think the last time I went into that Sears, well, the time before that I went in, it seemed like there were to the nines, all wearing like jacket and tie, and that sort of tells you how old-fashioned they were, because jacket and tie it's all men, and they all were like just kind of twiddling their thumbs. And as soon as you walked in there, may I help you? And you'd round a corner, may I help you? And round another corner, may I help you? And I'm like, God, there's so many people working here, and there's like 2 customers in the whole store. They don't have enough to do, so they're all jumping me. So I had to walk out. I couldn't get 5 feet through the store without. And then the time after that, I went in because I had which is a Craftsman, which used to be Sears brand, and the battery went bad in it. So I'm like, okay, I'll go to Sears, like you used to always do, and bring the battery in, and they should be able to find the replacement for it, and then there'll be a core charge, and I'll turn this battery in. So I went in there. And instead of like all these salespeople in there, it was like 2 salespeople, and both of them were, shall we say, teenagers. And that was the entire store. The entire store was just 2 people, and both of them underexperienced teenagers, basically. So I was like, I got this battery, and this time it was I'd say woman, but it was more like a girl. And she didn't even know what I was talking about. She didn't even recognize the brand. And it was like, I think it was a Die Hard battery, which is Sears, and or Craftsman, something like that. And she didn't recognize it. She didn't recognize. I like, you don't even know your own company's history, which is actually a very well-known, rich history. She said, I have to look. So she spent so much time looking online at our cash register for this battery. And she's like, oh, we don't have any of those. I'm like, you don't have any? Carry that. I'm like, this is your brand. Oh, really? And I was like, oh my God. So she said, okay, this is Sears, so we're going to have to order it online. I'm like, I could have done that at home, actually. So, all right, go ahead and do it. And it took her forever, and then she had to ask for help from the only other person in the store. This time, customers sort of outnumbered. But, I mean, I had waited quite a while to actually get, because customers outnumbered and everyone needed help, and these people couldn't help us. So then she's, okay, we can order this online, all right, and you're ready to do it? And I'm like, sure. And I said, do you want this for a core charge? And oh my God, she said, what is a core charge? We don't do that. I'm going somewhere else. Thank you. So I went to a place that specializes in batteries, a local mechanic we used to go to. And I know they did batteries. And I probably paid more for this battery and got it there. And I was standing there and I said, you want this one for a core charge? Oh, no, he said, you're returning that for a core charge? And I'm like, oh my God, I thought I just imagined that whole thing, that core charge has never existed in the universe, because the way I was just dealt with. So yeah, they had gone completely the opposite way, and they downsized completely. And I knew then that was probably the last time I'd ever want to go in a Sears, and the company was pretty much kaput. And that was what, 2 years ago, maybe? And it was at that Sears I just passed by, and they're no longer there. They shut down probably sometime last year. Probably not very long after I went in there and had that experience. And I used to know I used to know a guy who was a Sears salesman. I think he worked in the sports department, and he was downsized. And this was probably back in the this was in the 80s. And my ex-brother-in-law's father was a loyal Sears employee, and he was, I think, downsized I mentioned earlier, I go 19 and a half years working at a company and get forced out before my 20th anniversary. And I think this guy was and had to work basically until he died, because he didn't really get a retirement after working for a company for probably 30 plus years. And nowadays they've talked everybody into providing for our own retirements. The pensions are a thing of the past, and mine wasn't ever a pension issue. My pension was done through the U. When I finally do decide to retire, I think mine was more of a personality issue with a manager who also, the 20-year anniversary, they probably didn't want me to get to that, because then I would be vetted and they couldn't, quote unquote, get rid of me when they wanted to. Although they didn't seem to have any problem with that. They had another employee they got rid of who'd worked there probably 30 years or more. They just fired him one day. But he didn't want to learn the basic nuts and bolts of his job, unfortunately. He needed certain things in order to keep his job, and he just kind of refused, and they said, okay. I mean, a news photographer, and this guy didn't even know how to edit. That's pretty bad. But then he was allowed to go 30 years and not have to touch an editor. It's almost 9 o'clock, and I need to go home and have my nap. And I still feel so late. I still have half that cup of coffee sitting right here. I should stop ordering a large. I can't drink a large. The temperature is 46 degrees Fahrenheit according to my car thermometer. What is the Weather Channel? 48 degrees, almost 50. Temperature hasn't changed much since the afternoon. It's probably like 49 degrees this afternoon, which is okay. It's not the most comfortable. Definitely not getting any kind of weather. All the weather down towards Texas, going to hit Louisiana. I think the central part of Mississippi is going to catch it again. They're going to be under a moderate risk of severe weather, which probably might be upgraded. The usual warnings: long track tornadoes, and beware, and have your emergency plan in place. Things that a lot of very bad at. Yeah, and if you live in a trailer, know where your shelter is. be ready to run there. And you know, every time a tornado outbreak happens, it seems people living in trailers are the last to be aware of it, and the first ones to get extremely affected by it. I would not. I said all that, and now I'm saying I would mining a trailer as like a way to save money. You know, the tiny houses, tiny house movement. A lot of tiny houses are essentially trailers, by the way, fancy trailers with a lot less amenities than a regular house trailer. And you know, we say trailers, they're mobile homes, another name for them. I think for the past 15 or so years, the politically correct thing to say now is prefabricated homes, and people look down their noses at trailers, but a lot of these prefab homes are pretty dang nice, and they're essentially meant to be the frame of these things are basically the frame of a house, and they're made to be hauled to a site, and then you have like a finished basement or foundation, and you put it on there, and it becomes, say, well, you know, those things are poor quality. No, they're not really. They're factory built, and so you know that the corners are usually square, and you also know that they're strong enough to withstand at least 100-mile-an-hour wind, because I tell you, the people who drive those things do not go very slow. I've seen these things going down the road at 70, 80 miles an hour, and you know, and against a headwind, you know that's about 100 miles an hour at least. And they're cheaper than houses, and I think that for the most part, a lot of them are pretty well built now, but some of them aren't. And you can find these as repos and stuff, so you can get them fairly cheap. Well, anyways, we're here. We're queer. Get used to it. Hee hee.